Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Emmanuel, and today we're going to be learning about animations. And we actually got introduced into the topic in our last video. So if you have absolutely no idea of how animations work, then I recommend that you go check that out. I'm going to leave a link in the card at the top. Then today we're going to be going more in depth, and we're going to actually build a very simple, very basic login form. But the idea is that we're going to have an email field and a password field. So whenever you enter an invalid email or password, then either of the fields just shakes, right? And this animation is based off of a recommendation from Mustafa. So, thank you. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And before we actually jump into it, I'd like to take a moment to recognize everyone who's been affected by the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. So this is like absolutely terrible, and I'm really, really sorry for what is currently happening. And I really pray that all of you, stay safe, and I pray that this conflict gets resolved even faster than it started. It's absolutely terrible, and I'm really sorry about that. Well, I can't wait for you guys to, for all of these to end, and you just come and join us in learning, right? So, okay, so let's jump right into the project. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to head over to the main.storyboard, and we're simply going to design our login form, all right? So first of all, I'm just going to add a UI image view right here. And we're just going to make this to be, let's say it might be 200 by 200. And we're going to anchor this to maybe 50, I guess. Okay, then we're going to just hold down Control, click, drag this, and click center horizontally, like that. Great, so now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add text fields. So we're going to add two text fields. The first one right here, and a second one right about here. Now this first one, we're going to say, add a placeholder, say enter email. So this is going to be for the email address. And the second one is going to be for, if you guessed it, password. Awesome. So here, we're going to make sure that this is secure text enabled. And another thing we're going to do is just going to put both of these in a stack view. You don't have to do that, but well, I just like to do it in case I want to add additional fields. So just click on this icon, embed in stack view. Great. Now finally, we're just going to add constraints to the top. We can say maybe 50, I guess, and 20 is pretty good. 20 again, enter. Awesome. Now finally, we're going to add a button here, and this button we're going to hold down Control, click, and drag center horizontally, and then we're going to add constraint to the top, and we can do 30, I guess. So we're going to change the text to login. Perfect. Now the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to actually put in the Ukrainian flag over here. So I'm going to open up my assets, and right in my desktop I have this icon over here. So I'm just going to bring that in. You can go ahead and download this from the internet, Google or whatever, right? So we have that downloaded. I'm just going to remove this. Oops, this. Good. Now I'm going to head back to the main.storyboard and just go ahead and use that. So select this, and we're also going to make this fill. So we're going to come over to aspect fit, content mode, and we're going to use content fill. All right, awesome. Now finally, the things we need to do are just to create outlets for all of these. So I'm just going to bring up the assistant editor and hold down Control, click, and drag. And this we're going to call flag image view. All right. And we're going to do the same thing for our text fields. So this is going to be email field. This is going to be password field. And finally, for our button, we need this to be an IB action instead. So just hold down, click, and say login button clicked. All right? Perfect. So this is all for our UI, and we can actually just go ahead and run this just to make sure that everything looks good. Good. So we have our email field and we have our password field. And actually you can go ahead and specify the type of input right here. So if I hold down Command and K, you can see that the keyboard type is not an email. So you can go ahead and do that by clicking on this, go into content type and saying email address, right? And you could also say keyboard type as well and say email address. Now if you run this, you're gonna notice that like there's an @ here, right? Good. Now, the next thing we're going to do is whenever we open up this page, we want this flag to rotate, all right? So this is the first animation we're going to be adding to this application, okay? So when we load the page, we want this to animate, right? So what we're going to do is, let's open up our view controller. And right here, we're going to create a private function and say animate flag, all right? Or let's actually just call this rotate flag. So basically this is going to rotate the flag, right? Now, the first thing we want to do here is we're going to create an animation, all right? And this animation is going to be of type CABasicAnimation. And this takes in a key path. Now I'm going to leave a link to a website where we have like different key paths. But basically what we want to do here is we want to specify the type of animation that we want to perform. Okay, so since we want to do a rotation, what we're going to do is we're going to say transform.rotate.z. All right, and this is basically the key path to the kind of rotation I want to do. So I want the square to rotate like this, right? So this is what I need. Well, actually, it's not even rotate, it's rotation, right? But I'm going to leave a link to like where you can find all of these key paths, all right? So first of all, we have to create a CABasicAnimation, all right? Then the second thing we're going to do is animation.fromValue. So basically, we're going to specify the starting point of this animation. And what's the starting point? 0, right? We want to start from like 0 degrees, right? Then we also want to specify the animation.toValue. So this is where we want to end. So what I want to do is I want to do a full rotation, so like 360 degrees rotation. And so for us to do that, I'm just going to say this is going to be cgfloat.pi times 2, all right? Good. Now finally, the last thing we need to do is whenever we create an animation like this, and actually before we even do that, one more thing that is very important for us to add is the duration. So remember, you're going to perform an animation for how long? You need to specify. So I'm going to say animation.duration, and here I'm just going to say like 3 seconds. So I want this animation to run for 3 seconds. So it's going to do the rotation for 3 seconds. Then finally, when you create your animation like this, you have to add it to the layer of the view that you want to animate. So in our case, we want to animate the flag image view. So what I'm going to say is flag image view.layer.add, and I'm going to choose this option where we can pass in an animation, CA animation, and here just say animation like that. And for key, you can actually specify the key you want, maybe rotation or whatever, or you can actually just go ahead and pass that nil, right? So now that we have this done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this particular rotating function in our view.load, right? So I'm going to say rotate flag, but I'm going to add a delay just so we can see when it starts and just make sure that it does like a full 360 degree rotation. So this .main async after, and here I'm just going to say .now plus let's say start the animation after like 2 seconds, right? Or yeah, let's say 3 seconds. Then here I'm just going to say self.rotate flag. Now let's go ahead and run this, and what we expect to see is when you launch the application, it should start rotating after 3 seconds. Oh, so it turns out it's too long. But let's run this again because I want to make sure that it's going all around. So I'm going to run the application again, And this is where we are, like this. Good. So this is what we want. But now let's go a bit further, all right? I want this application to run continuously. So I want this to always rotate. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, let's go ahead and reduce this. And here, I'm going to add a few more configurations. So the first thing is going to be repeat duration. Right? Now here, we have multiple options, but I'm just going to say dot infinity. Right? So I want this to continuously repeat. So now, you can go ahead and run this one more time. And this is going to rotate. But when it gets there, it doesn't stop, it continues, right? So this is going to continuously run, right? And this is good. Now, you can, if you notice from here, we have sort of like a linear kind of movement. So it is constantly moving at the exact same speed while it is rotating, right? So what I want to do now is I want this to, how do I say this? I want this to sort of ease in and ease out. So I want to add like a different kind of animation. What's it called again? I can't remember. Well, anyhow, for us to do that, what we're going to do is come over here and we're going to create animation, and here we're going to modify the timing function. And you can see the type that it expects is a CAMedia timing function. So here I'm going to say CAMedia timing function, and this is going to take in a name. And for the name, I can basically just select what kind of animation effect that we want. Right? So currently it's using like linear. So what I want to do is I want to use ease in out. And you're going to see what effect this is going to have. So I'm going to run this again. And now we should have something like, it goes like that, right? And this is good, I guess. So now the next thing we're going to do is while this flag is rotating, I want us to also modify the corner radius of this particular view. Okay. Now, from our past video, so I'm just going to create a private func animate radius. Now, in our last video, we learned to be able to do this using the normal UIView animation, and that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm first of all going to show you how to do it like that. So say UIView.animate with duration. And the duration here, we're just going to say like 3 seconds. We don't want any delays. Let's move this to the next line. Now for options, we're going to pass in a couple of options. The first one we want to do is we want to repeat, of course. Then also we want to auto reverse. And I'm going to show you what that's going to look like, right? So we have that. And for completion, we can just go ahead and pass in nil. Now for the animation over here, what we're going to do is we want to animate the corner radius, right? So what we're going to say is self dot, and this is going to be self dot flag image view dot layer dot corner radius equals, and we can say maybe like 50. And actually always remember, it's always best and safest to just say weak self in, even though we're not going to have issues here, but it's just good practice to keep this in mind. So here, I'm just going to do like this. So now that we have this, we can actually just go ahead and call animate radius as well when we try to animate the flag. So we're going to run this again, and can you guess what kind of animation we're going to get? Look very closely. So you can see it created a corner radius of 50, and then it reverses automatically. And this is going to continuously repeat, okay? So this is just a way I wanted to show you that we can combine like this kind of animation, or this process of creating an animation with the UI animation, right? And we can actually do this exact same thing this way, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to comment this guy out. And here, well, let's actually do it on top. What we're going to do is, we're going to create an animation like this. And this is going to be equal to CABasicAnimation. And here, we're going to specify the key path as corner radius, right? Then there are a couple of attributes that we're going to need to set. So first of all, remember, animation, we got to set the from value. So the from value of this is going to be obviously 0 because we want it to start from like the sharp edge. Then we're also going to set the to value to be 50, just to be the same as what we already had. Then we're going to set the duration to be 3 seconds. Then we're going to set the auto reverses to be true. And let's see if I'm missing anything. Yep, we also have to set the repeat duration, or the repeat count actually. So repeat, what am I spelling? Repeat count, and you can just say the infinity, right? So yeah, it's just going to continuously repeat. So, and I think same thing goes for this. Actually, let me see what the difference is. So repeat count determines the number of times the animation will repeat. Then repeat duration determines how many seconds the animation will repeat for. So, well, both of them just did the same thing, but I guess repeat count is a better property in this particular case. So we want the count to be infinite. So yeah, so this is going to continuously repeat, and always you got to remember to add it. If you don't add it, the animation is not going to take effect. So flag view.layer.add, and we want to add animation. For key, you can just go ahead and pass nil. So now I'm going to run this, and we should see the exact same animation still happening. So it starts like that, it curves the animation 50, then reverses, and then it continues the animation, just like that. Wonderful, very simple and sweet. Okay, now let's actually go into the main issue for today, which is we want to validate. Whenever you click on the login button, validate these fields and shake the text field if it is not valid, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to create two functions, and the first one is going to be, we can make this private func, validate email, and this is going to return a boolean so we know whether or not it's valid. Then also we're going to create another func to validate password. All right, now for validate email, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to paste a piece of code that I always use. It's a regex that basically checks whether or not the email is valid. So let me just paste that. Okay, so let's just clean this up. Good. So basically what is happening here is we have this regular expression for a valid email, and this is basically going to check to make sure that the text in the email field matches the regular expression. And if it does, it's going to return true. If it does not, it's going to return false. And I'm going to notice here that I actually forced this, and it's okay here because I'm sure that the value exists. But always remember, if it is a live project, then it's always best to be safe, all right? Even though you're sure, just be safe, all right? So for the validate password, all we're going to do is we're just going to make sure that the count is greater than 8. So we're just going to say return password field dot text dot count, and actually I'm doing the same thing here again, so be safe always. So this has to be greater than or equal to 8. So if your password is greater than or equal to 8, this is going to return true. Good. Now whenever you click on the login button, we want to validate both of these fields. So we're just going to use a guard statement and say guard validate email, else return. So if email is not valid, we want to do something. Now what do we want to do? Private func, we're going to create one more function, and what this function is going to do is to shake whatever field is passed in. So just say shake field, and this is going to be UI text field because that's what we want to pass in. But you can make it even more, you can make it even better by just passing in a layer or a view or whatever. But I just want to pass in field, right? Do whatever you feel like. So we have this function, and we're going to implement this function in a bit, but for now, let's actually finish with the validation. So if there's an error for any reason, we're just going to shake field. And what field do we want to shake? We want to shake the email field. All right. Finally, we're going to do the exact same thing, so let me not be lazy and just type it again. So guard, this time we're going to be validating password, else, space, return. Here we're going to shake field, and the field we're going to shake here is the password field. Otherwise, we're just going to print and say, great job, y'all. Then I'll just add like a clap emoji. I love emojis. Yep. So you done good. You done good. All right. Oh, I think there's a this, y'all. All right, so let's actually go ahead and test this. So what we expect is when we enter a valid email, then if we enter a valid email and password, then we should see the great job, y'all. If we do not, then we should get the error. So for enter email, we're gonna say, I don't even know what I'm typing. And for password, I'm just gonna enter something. You can see, great job, y'all, great. Now I'm just gonna put an invalid email, just like this, and click login, nothing happens. And let's put a valid email, oops. And here, I'm just gonna put not valid password, and it doesn't work, good. So now we know that our validation works. So what we want to do now is we want to implement the animation to shake, right? Now, the animation to shake is a little bit different from what we currently have here. So basically, the way the shake animation is going to work is we have our field in a particular position, right? So for us to shake, we want to move that field along the x-axis to a particular position at a particular time. So let's say we want our animation to run for 1 second. So we're going to say at 0.1 second, move the field 10 pixels to the right. Then at 0.5 seconds, move it minus 10 pixels to the left. And then at 0.75 seconds, move it 10 pixels to the right. Then at 1 second, move it to 0. Okay, so if you put all of these together, it's going to give this kind of animation. Vroom, 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 vroom. So that's like your shake effect, right? And that's what we're going to be doing here. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to say let animation be equal to CA keyframe animation. So this is different from like our basic animation that we had over here, where we just perform basic animation, right? This one is we're trying to perform an animation at a specific time, or a specific keyframe, if you will. So this is going to be a keyframe animation, and then here we're going to say, okay, the animation we want to perform is position.x, right? We want to move the field. We want to change the position, the x position of the field, right? So that's the animation we want to perform. And again, don't worry about all of these keyframe values. I'm going to leave a link, I hope, to a good resource where you can find many of these animations, right? So the next thing we want to do, unlike the basic animation, we're going to say animation.values, right? So this is not like the from value or to value. This is going to be values because we have like an array of values. So the values we want to set are, so first of all, we want to start from our current position. So that's going to be 0, right? Now we want to move like 10 pixels to the right. 10 pixels to the right, which is going to say 10. After 10 pixels to the right, we want to go minus 10. So that's go back. So from the original point, which is 0, we're going minus 10. So go back, left, so minus 10. Then from there, we want to go back to the front or go back to the right, which is what? 10. Then finally, we want to stop in the middle, which is 0, okay? So let me just show you what's going to happen here. This is the starting point, the center, right? Then we have 10. Whenever we have positive, it moves to the right, right? So from here, it goes 10. Then the next one is negative 10. Then it goes negative 10. Then next one is positive 10, and it goes back to positive 10. Then finally, we have 0, just the middle, all right? So that's the animation we're going to have. Now, the next thing we need to specify is the timing, or what, key times. Good. Now you can see as an array of objects that defines the time at which to apply a given keyframe segment. So at what point do we want this animation to execute? At what point do we want this value to be set? At what point do we want this value to be set? This value, this value. So we're going to have to specify all of those values, And actually you can put whatever values you want. So depending on how you want your shake to happen, you could decide to divide your duration by how many of these? We have 5. So you can divide your duration by 5, and then you basically just fix in the values like that. But what's going to happen is if you have like even durations or even delays to execute all of these animations, remember that when you go from your current position and you go 10 pixels to the right, if you do that for 3 seconds, it's going to execute for 3 seconds, right? Just imagine how long it's going to take. So it's going to perform it slow enough to finish the duration in 3 seconds. Now the next thing that's happening is we are immediately jumping to -10. So remember, -10, for you to get to -10, you have to go from -10 to 0, and from 0, sorry, you have to go from 10 to 0, then from 0 you now go to -10. So if you use the same 3-second delay, then it's going to execute faster going to the other side because it has a longer distance to cover, right? So I hope what I just said makes sense. Basically what I'm saying is, if you're going from the middle 10 pixels to the right, is a shorter distance than going from the position of the right back to -10, right? So it's just something to keep in mind. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste some values that I had already played around with. So basically what is happening here is in the 0 second or 0 second is going to be at position 0. It's going to be at this value. Now at 0.08 seconds, it's going to be at 10. At this seconds, is going to be at this. At this seconds, is going to be at this. And finally, at this second, is going to be this, right? And as you probably have guessed, it means that I want my shake to happen within 0.5 seconds, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify animation.duration equals 0.5, okay? Now, finally, what we're going to do here is I'm going to add the animation to our layer. So to add it, I'm just going to say field.layer.add, and here we're going to add animation. For a key, I'm just going to pass in nil, okay? So let's go ahead and run this, and we should actually see a shake effect happen. But there's something that's not going to work well. Don't worry, we're going to fix that. So when you click on this, oops, oh my goodness. So there are a couple of weird things that happen here. First of all, when I clicked on this, it seemed like it shook, right? It shook actually, but it shook way at the left. And then when it was done, it came back to the position. What is wrong? Now there are a couple of things that are happening here. First of all, which is one thing I'd like to show you, is whenever you execute an animation, when the animation is done, the animation is removed from the layer and it also returns to the original position. Now, if you don't want this to happen, you're able to basically hold your animations at the position that they ended. Now, to do that, just go here and say animation.fill mode, and here we're just going to specify forwards, all right? Now, finally, we're going to say animation.remove is removed on completion, and here we're just going to say false, okay? Now let's run this again, and this time, when the animation runs, it shouldn't snap back to the original position. It should just like stay there. So I'm going to run this, and you can see that now the animation remains at that position. And you can see this shake effect because the email is invalid. But this is still wrong. Something is not right, right? Right? Anyhow, so we want this shake effect to happen from the point of the view. So we want it to start at the view's original position, right? So what we're going to do is very simple. So right here, we're going to add one more property and say, what's the property? Is additive. Good. And let's actually just read the description. It says, it determines the value specified by the animation is added to the current render tree value. So it means that this is going to continue from the current state. So here, I'm just going to specify the is additive to be true. And now, if we run this application again and click on this, ooh, we have the shake effect. So now let's go ahead and enter a valid email, like this. And when I click login again, oops, what just happened? it's either that is wrong or my condition is completely false. So I'm going to put this at this dot this, click login. Okay, good. So probably the email wasn't valid. Maybe the regex or something. Let me see if I can figure that out. Oh yeah. So the regex said that was an invalid email, which is good. So now we have a valid email, but we don't have a password. So I'm going to go ahead and put a few characters. Still not good. Put some more. Voila. Great job, y'all. So in this video, we've been able to cover different types of animation. We have like the corner radius, we have like the rotation, we have like the shake effect. There are many more you can do. You can play with opacity, you can play with the move, you can play with the transform, and yeah, I'm gonna definitely leave a link to that. And actually, if you have enjoyed this video or found any value whatsoever, you can go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have questions, go ahead and leave it in the comment section. If you have recommendations, again, you can go ahead and send them my way. But in our next video, we have one more step to go. Well, not one more step, but we're going to go one step further in our animations, and we're going to create sort of like an interactive animation, okay? So it's not just going to execute, but we're going to be able to intercept and basically work with our animations, all right? So if this is something that you want to see, go ahead and turn on your notifications so that whenever I release the video, you are aware, all right? So that's it, guys. Until next week, you guys stay safe.